we can start. Let me double check the microphone. Everything is fine. Let's start recording. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Hello guys and welcome to my channel QANSIGLIERE. On this week I received a task to define metrics to measure the progress of test automation team. And today I'm going to share with you what ideas I achieved and what metrics are the best to be collected in case if you are responsible for test automation team or for test automation department. But in any case, if you want to start working with metrics, you need to ask yourself, your manager or your director, what is the reason to collect metrics? What problem do you want to solve by metrics? Because if you implement all possible metrics, you will spend a lot of time and resources on it, and most of them will be useless. And my suggestion: define the problem what you want to solve, and only in this case implement some specific metrics. But in general, we can use metrics to define the progress and see how many, for instance, test cases we already automated or automated in the past sprint. It depends on the approach what you use in your company, and to demonstrate what else could be measured. Let's start our conversation about test automation team from the list of activities what we need to do in test automation team. First activity, it's a work with manual test cases, because if you want to automate something, you need to have manual test cases, and you need to analyze them, you need to optimize them, because some of them could contain duplicated steps or duplicated actions. And for instance, we can measure two manual test cases in one automated script. Second activity, it's a test automation process itself. It's the case when you cover manual scenario by different tools, different software, different frameworks. Third one activity, it's work with documentation, because all our progress, all our frameworks, they should be covered by documentation, and you can use this documentation to share your experience, your knowledge with other people in engineering department at least. Fourth one activity, it's test execution, because you can create some scripts and also you need to execute these scripts to see how they work and how many issues you can find. Usually companies use test automation team to reduce manual backlog and to optimize their delivery time for new features. And let's demonstrate what I said, because based on this information we will create some metrics. First of all, let's open a web browser page. For this purpose I will use Google Chrome, and let's navigate to draw.io. Nice free tool to create any scheme, diagram. Let's create new scheme. I will share this document after stream, and you will be able to find the link to this document in the description to this video. Let's write the name for new diagram. It will be metrics for the test automation team. Let's demonstrate. Let's present our team. Test automation team. Okay, let's add more people. let's do this to back and okay, and let's change the text color. Let's use white. Okay, looks good, at least to me. Okay, let's put activities on this diagram. First activity, it's manual test cases. Another activity, it test automation process plus test execution process plus documentation and plus work with ticket management system. Right now I think we can show 5 different activities. Let's do this action. Line text. Apply and style. Okay, and let's make it bold. Perfect. Let's move with people a little bit. Okay, done. And let's connect our test automation team with first activity. It's work with manual test cases. When you start working as a test automation engineer, you receive a backlog of manual test cases, and you need to analyze these test cases and optimize them, because without it you will implement the same steps and you will spend more time to execute, for instance, 2 scenarios, and these 2 activities should be placed in manual test cases. Let's add them. So first process is analyze manual test cases. Or it's better to say analysis. I've provided manual test cases. And second activity is optimization. So we can cover these activities, I mean work with manual test cases, by 2 parameters. First of all, it's number of analyzed test cases, and second metric, it could be a number of optimized tests. If you start collect such metrics, you will be able to see the quality of test cases what you receive for automation, and the less time you spend on analysis and less time you spend on optimization, the more time you can spend on another activities. So let's include these 2 activities to here. Done. Let's select it. Done and done. Okay, so metrics could be placed here, and these two metrics, I mean number of analyzed test cases and number of optimized test cases, they could show the quality of manual test cases what you receive in test automation department. It's clear. Now let's move to test automation process. It means what you take some manual test cases and you try to cover them by scripts, by frameworks, by tools. And here we can face different information. First of all, it's number of new lines of code what you create to cover scenario. Another parameter, it could be number of opened merge requests per sprint, per day, per month. It depends on the time range what you want to use for analysis. Also, it could be number of reviewed merge requests, because we do not want to keep merge requests open for a long time. And what also we could place in the work with test automation process. For instance, we can measure the time what we spend to execute at least one test case, what is already covered. And let's put this information here in this area. So first activity, as I mentioned before, when we start writing new automated test case, new script, we provide some code, and for instance, we can track the number of lines of the code. But different people could use different style to create any script, and I think this parameter is tricky to be tracked. Let's put it here. Another parameter what we can measure during the sprint or during the quarter or month, it's the number of opened branches. It will show how many tasks are in progress at least. Also, we could track the number of closed merge requests. Plus, we can track the number of reviewed, commented MRs. What else? What else? I think all these four parameters we could use to track the progress of test automation team. Because, for instance, if you start working on any manual test case, I mean, if you need to cover any manual test case, usually you create a new feature branch where you will cover it. After that, you create some scripts to cover scenario. You create a merge request. This merge request should be reviewed by other people in test automation team, and after that you will be able to merge this merge request to master branch or to develop branch. It depends on the name what you use for main branch. And also, in some companies, it's important to do not keep opened merge requests for a long time, and they want to track the time what we spend to review at least one merge request. So let's connect these four activities. Done. Now we can talk about other and main, from my point of view, activity. it's test execution. When you create test cases, your main goal is to reduce the time what manual test automation team, when you automate some test scenarios, your main goal is to reduce the time what manual QA engineers spend on regression. And in this case, you as test automation engineer, you execute some scripts, and these scripts can show you different information. First information what you can receive from test execution, it's execution time. You could use hours, minutes, or days. To track execution time. Plus, if you have the number of automated test cases, you can measure the time what you spend to execute at least one scenario. Plus, we can receive information about automated number of automated test cases, and this number it also could be splitted on different parameters. First of all, it's number of tests passed, number of tests failed, and number of tests blocked. One moment. Okay, let's change the label a little bit. Done. So technically we can measure these three areas to define the progress of test automation team. Plus, in case if you have failed test cases or blocked test cases, you need to spend some additional time to analyze what is the reason for it. Maybe it's some flaky test cases, maybe there is some issues, some issue, maybe the logic of the product was changed, and these two areas they could be splitted on some additional options. For instance, it's how to say, finding, no, I would say test case analysis. Also, it could be applied to number of blocked tests. Plus, we can define the number of flaky tests. Done. What else we could measure here? We can define the number of automated test cases. It means coverage. No, I would keep it as is. And what else we can fine here. Let's leave it. Let's move to another activity. It's work with documentation. So one of the main activities of test automation team is to provide the valid documentation about stuff what you implemented, what scripts you created, how to run those scripts on your local environment, where to find some test credentials, and so on. And you also can track the time what people spent on documentation, what time was spent to create new document or update some legacy documentation, and so on. And the last one activity, it's work with ticket management system, because when you execute some automated scripts, you could find an issue. And if you find the issue, you need to create a ticket. So we can put here activity new ticket creation. And here we also could add additional activity. It's answering on the questions from created tickets, because you as a test automation engineer found an issue, but you could be asked about what environment you used, what credential you use to face this issue or to reproduce this problem, and so on. And we need to spend additional time, for instance, to compare different versions of applications to better understand, is it new bug or this bug already exists in the application, and so on. And what metrics we can build here? Let's demonstrate it in another approach. So, for instance, let's take a time range. No, it's a bit. How to add some nodes here? Probably we can use this diagram to create some basic metrics. First metric what you can introduce in your project is the number of test cases in your backlog. It means the number of test cases what should be automated, what should be covered, and you can track this number during the sprint or during the quarter, just to show the progress. For instance, at the beginning of the sprint you have 500 test cases to be automated, and at the end of the sprint you automated, for instance, 50 test cases, but manual quality assurance engineer, so they added some additional 60 new test cases. And you can track the changes in the backlog of manual test cases. Plus, you can track the time what you spend to analyze these manual test cases in the backlog. You also can track the time what you spend to optimize these manual test cases in backlog. And these three metrics, they can show you, first of all, the number of work what should be implemented in the next several sprints at least, plus it will show you the quality of test cases what you receive from manual QA department. Regarding of test automation process, here we could implement more metrics. First of all, you can track number of changes in your project. Good news, what such tools like GitHub or GitLab, they could calculate these changes automatically and demonstrate this progress when you just open the account of your teammate. Plus, you can track the number of opened branches during the sprint or during the quarter. It will show you how many jobs are right now in progress in your test automation team. Plus, you can track the number of closed merge requests. It will show you how many tasks were finished. Plus, you can track the number of reviewed merge requests, because it will show you who from your team do more code review or less. Plus, you can track the number of reviewed merge requests and see how long merge requests are opened in your particular team. Plus, if we take a time range like sprint, you can track how many tasks were planned during the sprint, how many tasks were completed in the sprint, how many tasks are still opened or are in progress at the end of the sprint, and it will show you how good or bad your team in the planning. Next activity, test execution, and this area could show you how many time you or your team spent on execution of automated regression or automated smoke test plan, and you can see maybe this area should be improved and you need to find a solution to spend less time on execution. Plus, you will be able to see the progress with number of automated scenarios. You will be able to see how many scenarios are automated, and you compare these numbers with manual backlog. You will be able to get coverage here. Just divide number of automated test cases on the number of all test cases. Also, we can track the quality of automated test cases. By quality, I mean how stable they are. You can see the number of passed test cases, you can see the number of failed test cases, you can see the number of blocked test cases. And also, in case if you face some failed scenario, you need to spend some time to analyze this scenario to find out the reason. Reasons could be different, and also you can track reasons. For instance, test cases could be failed by flaky test, they could be failed by changes in the product, they could be failed by issue, or maybe the script was not good enough, and you are able to measure these numbers and see how they could be changed in different time ranges, for instance in several quarters or in several months. Plus, we can play with these numbers, and for instance we can take the number of found issues by test automation team and divide it on the number of executed test cases, and you'll be able to see the effectiveness of your automated scripts. So here we have a lot of abilities to play with information from these activities, from these areas. Another activity will show you how your team spent on documentation, because for instance, usually people try to avoid to create documentation. They do not like it, right? Right. But if you lose some teammates and if you need to bring a new engineer in your team, you need to train him or her. And documentation will help you to spend less time on the trainings, because they will be able to read some documentation, they could try to launch it locally and so on. And number of created documents, number of updated documents, time what you spent on documentation, it also could be used as a metric in test automation team. And the last one activity, it's work with ticket management system. You can, for instance, track the number of submitted issues. Good metric, because it will show how effective is your team. Plus, you can measure the time what your team spent to provide answers on questions from product owners, from another QA engineers, and based on these results you can decide maybe you need to improve the quality of submitted issues, or maybe people ask some questions what they could investigate, and so on. It also could be used. It also could be useful. Plus, I think the main critical metric what should be implemented here is the number of missed production defects. Because in case if you sure what you automated scenario, this scenario was failed by some reasons and test automation engineer didn't see the problem with this failed test case, but this problem happens to the production environment. In this case, it's better to track how many issues you missed in the previous release or in the previous quarter. It depends on it. You also can implement some improvements. Maybe the quality of scripts are not good enough here, or maybe you have another reasons why you missed issues what are covered by automated scripts, or maybe you need to work on the coverage. Anyway, I think it's a base set of activities what we could implement, and let's add another one activity, and let's call, one moment, maintenance. What does it mean? When you create test case and this test case was failed, you need to update this test case. Depends on the reason of the fail. If, for instance, logic for application was changed, you need to update this scenario, and you also could track this number of fixed scripts. Plus, also we can update our test infrastructure. For instance, maybe we received a new version of Node.js, or we received a new version of some framework. You need to install it and check how it works with your test cases. So we can say and also we can update some algorithms. How we can call all these changes? We can call it optimizations, and we also have ability to track how many test cases we fixed in the current quarter or in the past quarter. Check these numbers and define the reason why we have so many or so less number of failed test cases. Plus, we can track the number of optimizations for our test infrastructure, because we need anyway update different components of test infrastructure. Plus, we can review our existing code and maybe decide to rewrite it in the better way. And we also can track such metrics. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this stream, before you implement metrics, you need to clearly understand what the problem you want to solve by using metrics. Maybe you spend too much time to keep opened merge requests. In this case, you need to focus on this area and implement metrics related to this area. Maybe your team spends a lot of time on test execution, so in this case you need to focus on these areas and implement specific metrics to these parameters. Maybe your team has a lot of failed test cases, so you need to implement metrics and define the reason why test cases are failed, and so on. Because if you try to collect all possible metrics, you guys spend a lot of time. I hope this stream was useful for you guys. At the end of the day, I will try to provide a link to this diagram, and feel free guys to write your comments, like this video please, subscribe, and thank you for your time. Have a nice week guys, bye.